I'm the tech guy. So, in this Solidity tutorial, we'll be creating an employee of smart contracts. We'll actually demonstrate how to store and retrieve details of an employee of an organization. We use structure, we use array, we also use function. Then we can also use constructor. In my other YouTube tutorial, which you can actually check, remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel for your support. And if you should check, when you check our other tutorial in this student mark management system, what we're able to do, we're also able to add students and also get students. But this employee smart contract will be created in another way to also get those kind of functions. So when you open our Solidity, the first thing to do, of course, is to create your file. But before that, in our smart contract, we'll be using the function of add employee. We'll also create a function that will get employee. We're using arrays and inside this employee, of course, we'll have some other sections. So at first, what you're going to do is to create your smart contract. Now you can actually name, depend on what your name, you can actually use it as employee I can use the employee details EMP details just name it anything you feel is comfortable for you. Details management system. So yeah, all right, you can then collapse the tabs. So the first thing to do, of course, is to invite or call in your license and your version, which shortcut is actually type in pragma. And when you type in pragma, then click on tab, automatically give you that license and gives you the version. So specify the version 0.8. Currently I think the highest version will be 8.8.21 something. Yeah, so you can just use 8.8.17. So you can use maybe greater than 16, greater than 15, depends on your choice. So like I said, as always, I'll always be giving comments so understand what we're trying to create or what we're trying to do. Like I said, in this Solidity tutorial, we'll be creating a smart contract. A smart contract to demonstrate how to store and retrieve details of employee. Yeah, so this is just the comment section. Then the next thing is, of course, you create a contract. Employee, you can just give it any contract name. It's not necessarily compulsory you use mine. I'm just doing that for learning sake. Now what we'll be needing in this, we'll be needing our struct. We'll also be needing arrays. Then we might, of course, we'll use some functions. Then we might probably use constructor. Yes, we might probably use constructor if possible. Let's just see how it goes. Yeah. Alright, so what to do next is to create. Then we'll start by creating our struct. Now, like I said, struct is actually also like a data type. Struct allows you, to also include other features of that of a particular structure of what you're using. We're using a structure of an employee, and an employee, of course, can have different categories. So I'm using a struct. It allows me to group other features underneath that structure. I'm creating a struct of employee. Then in this struct of employee, we'll create an integer value. This integer value, let's say employee ID, and terminate it with semicolon. String of course name of the employee. department of the employee, then designation of the employee. So for learning purposes, I'll be using comments stored to house the structure of employee. So next is for me to create an array of this employee. I'll create an instance of an array of this employee. So employee, of course, then let's just name it EMPS, employee structure. Depends on what you want to do. So this is actually a dynamic array, which means you can actually continue to add more information till infinity. That's why I'm using a dynamic array for this. So I'm creating an instance of an array of that structure. So employee, then array, of course, EMPS. So it means I'm creating an array of EMPS of the structure employee. It means I'm adding a lot of information to it. Now the next is for me to create a function to add employee details. So if you remember, I said we might probably use a constructor. So instead of let's use a constructor. Let's use a constructor here. So I want to initialize it in such a way that the person calling this smart contract should be the only one permitted to cause that smart contract. Else it should give us, if someone else is calling this smart contract, it should give us an error that no, you are not the owner, so you can access that information. So let me see our address. Of course, let me give it assign an address to a variable name owner. Then I will create a modifier. Let's get a modifier function. I'll create a modifier, then name it. You can give it any variable name, please. I'm just using this for any purpose. So I'll create a require function also. Now this require we allowed it to ascertain ascertain the address to make sure that okay, this is the person calling this address, else then not the no. So this is quite to be similar to the student management system which we did. This is quite similar in one way or the other to it. Then you terminate your modifier by using a semicolon. So let's see what it says. No machine declaration further for argument. When they lookup function require boolean. Okay, and string. Remember. Alright, when we're going in with our function, it is going to okay. So look at this. It says function no matching declaration found after argument lookup. So I think there's an error here. Looking at this place, line 21. Of course, so now the comparison is where the error is. When I'm using observe this. When I use that 1 equals to sign, that is not a comparison. Syntax. I'm trying to compare the owner. This is variable name. It should be the message of saying that the address should be assigned. So I'm using it should be equals. I'm using that double equals to sign. So that to assign this variable name to compare and assign this variable name, the address stored in this message of sender to the variable name of the owner. So when it's ascertain that okay, of course this is the message of sender, the address is saved in the owner. Ascertain that this is when the contract is being called. If it's not the owner of that contract, it's going to show that not the owner of the contract. Hence, this is why I'll be introducing constructor, so that we occur that an initialization of that program or this month's contract, it should indicate that yes, this is the person calling. So automatically assign that this is the person calling this smart contract. So I'll create a constructor. Constructor should be message that owner. Now this constructor is, like I said, it works in such a way that at the beginning of this smart contract, at the initialization, it assigns this message of saying that the address is assigned automatically to the owner address, owner variable name of the address. It means this is the person calling the smart contract. The address that is already there is that person automatically assigned that okay, this is the address of this person calling smart contract. So therefore, automatically any other person calling that smart contract with another address, of course, it is going to pop out this modifier error, which says that not the owner of the contract. So this is why I'm also using the require statement. So next, okay, I've created my dynamic array. Now going back to my function to add employee details. Now what I'll be needing, okay, I'll create a function. Function add employee. Now if I'm adding employee, what will I be needing? Going back to short, the information given here is that, okay, I need my ID, I need the name, I need department, I need this designation. So therefore the same information I'll be also requesting from that function of add employee. So I will need my employee ID. I also need my, now in Solidity, it's advisable to, when you're accepting input via function, it's advisable to assign those variable name with underscore. It allows you to structure your code properly, and in terms of differentiation, it allows you that solidity, or for readability purpose rather, so that you know, okay, this underscore means I'm accepting value from this function, so these are the variable name that's being assigned to this. That's the essence of me using this underscore. You can actually use different variable name, depends on your choice. So string name, I'll be accepting, okay, the name, the designation, no, the name, the department, and designation. String memory department, string designation also. Then okay, let me break it down so it won't be too much here. Now in this place, where I'm inserting memory, the function of this memory keyword is so that it will store this data temporarily during the execution of this smart contract. When I call this function, when I call this smart contract, me accepting input and using the memory keyword, it will store that data temporarily. Now when this variable that is declared, this variable that is declared is using this memory keyword, it stores that memory in the area of the Ethereum virtual machine. Now of course, in the Ethereum virtual machine, it is the default storage location for variables in Solidity. So that's why I'm using this memory. It's going to store that data temporarily. So if I'm using any information that has to do with string, setting input of string, definitely or compulsory, you have to put that memory. It depends on if you are doing other advanced concepts, if you are doing other things that involves more technicalities. That's when you assign. We have data call, or rather, for storage locations. So it's a temporary location. Temporary, it has to be stored, but the information will be stored temporarily. That's why I'm using memory. So going further now, because I'm writing this function, of course I have to make my function public so that the user will be able to have access to it. So let me make this public. So for learning purposes, I will show you this when we deploy our transaction, so you'll be able to identify what the function of this address is. So I'll give you string memory, designation, and also remember, try like, subscribe, and share, and try to check out the student management system so you also have an understanding of what I've done there. So I'll make this function public. Now when I've automatically made this function public, so I have to create an instance of the employee, of the array employee. Then memory, like I said, is an information that needs to be stored temporarily. Then I can just name it, let me see, this is okay, let me give it another name, employee details management system, EMP DMS is equals to employee. Now I am calling an instance of this employee struct. This is the instance. I created an array here, fine. Then I'm also calling the instance here. That means employee, of course, is a information that needs to be stored in this probably. Then this variable name should be assigned as employee, and is equals to employee. The structure of that employee accepts this information. So from this information, this is of course accepting this information I'm putting here. So I have to replicate this variable name I'm inserting here into this place. Underscore name, underscore department, underscore destination, now semicolon. Now because I'm using array, so I have to push any information I'm putting it creating into the structure employee. I have to push that information into an array. So me pushing into array, I have to now call the variable name that I've newly assigned as a to be called as the employee. That is empdms dot push. Now sorry, this is not what's supposed to be. emps rather dot push. Now emps, if you can remember, that is the dynamic array name of the employee. So emps dot push will allow you to push in the information you are putting in the add employee function. Any information you are putting is going to call that dot push, so it will input that value into the acceptability of the functions that you've created. So that's why I'm using emps dot push, then empdms. Now this empdms is a variable, new instances of a variable that I've created that's assigned to employee. So that means the variable, all the information stored in this empdms, it should be pushed into this array emps. It should be pushed there into this array of emps. That is what I'm simply saying for it to do. So this is just a function of it. Then now I've been able to create my add employee function. The next thing for me to do is to create a function to get the employee details. To get the employee details. Now I have to create a function get employee. Now this is a variable name. Of course, you can name your function any other name you like. So I'll be calling it using any particular ID. Employee ID. Now I'll make it public. Then I'll make it view returns. Oleona. Okay, now this is get employee. So in this get employee function, I'm only accepting one input. I set just input of a particular ID. That means when I input a particular ID, it should return all the information for that is assigned to that ID. So I'm going to be making it public. Of course, it has to be to visible to the user. I'm going to give it a view. Then I'm assigning a return statement. Return statement is going to return any information that I'm requesting for that particular information. It should return those information. So now I'll say string memory. What I'm saying is, should return. Now, if you go back to your struct, you see that what has assigned string is name, department, and designation. So what I'm saying is, you should return the string of a name, return the string of department, then return the third string, which is designation. So when I input the ID, it's going to return these three information. That's why I'm using only this return. Oh, sorry, pardon me, please. So that's what I'm saying. It should return only these three values. Return the name, return the department, return the designation, because I'm assigning the string. Now this Oleona, if you observe, I moved it from the end to this public after public view. That's where it's supposed to be. The returns is a return statement. The returns is a return statement that comes off at the end of the function. But in Solidity, when you are returning, you use returns. Then you specify what that function should return. So at the input of an ID, you should return these three information: the name, the department, the designation. I'm making it public, so accessible to the user. Then I'm also assigning it the view. So what I'll be doing next is to specify the functions of what is going to be doing in the function of get employee. So I have to give it now. I'll be using loop here so that I'll iterate through the functions, the numbers of the employee, struct employee. So I will specify unit value, unsigned integer value of I. Then because I'm using loop, that is why I'm using this unsigned integer of I, which is a state variable. Local variable, sorry, pardon me, it's a local variable because I'm creating that variable inside the function. using loop to iterate. So unit I. Now for I, of course, because I've created now unit I. Now instead of that, I can simply just use unit I in this for loop. But because I've created a local variable of unit unsigned integer I outside, so there's no need for me to declare the data type again. So that's why I'm just using I is equals to 0. Start from 0, then I is less than now amps dot. Now this for loop, what I'm simply saying it should do is, now in this for loop here, create of course starting from I, then the I, which is 0, is less than the length emps, which is the array. Emps is the array variable name that I've assigned it here. It should be less than amps dot length. So that means if 0 is less than, let's say I've added of course before I get the employee, I would have added information of an employee. So you have to go back to emp when I is equals to 0. 0 is less than emp. Let's say I've added about three employee in this function. I've added about 3 employees. So I is equals to 0. That means starting from 0, 0 is less than 3. Then it will iterate through. When I added more employees, it's going to add 1 to the number of employees. So which is that I'm giving I plus plus. So when it's iterating through, it's going to give out that information. Okay, at the rate of at 1, at 2, return this, at 3, return this. That's why I'm iterating through. Now going back to this, I said okay, function get employee, input the of course accessibility of the data type of the employee ID. Now when I'm using view, this view function, what it does is that it's actually a function. This particular function, because I'm using view here, it means what I'm saying is that okay, this function should read. You should read from this smart contract, but you should not alter the state variable that I've defined in this smart contract. That's what I'm simply saying. It says a function that only reads, is and does not alter the variable, the state variable that I'm using here is known as the view function. And better illustration to that, if now this statement below is inside the function, so that means the compiler will consider them as altering state variable and return a warning if this function is found in a view function in such a way that when I'm using this view function, I'm only reading and I'm not altering any state variable. That's what this is simply saying. Because I'm not altering any state variable, so I have to use that view function. So going further, because I'm using the for loop here, and let's say okay, go after. Now the state variable I've created here, it's, let me see, okay, now it's employee state. These are the state variables: ID, name, department, designation. Now the state variable is called, what is called a state variable actually is that the variable that is not inside the function, you not declare it inside the function. So because this function is not making use of a state variable, so that is why I'm giving it a view function. I'm just trying to allow it to return some information. So that's why I'm using a view function. It's not variables that are not called, that are not inside the function, is known as the state variable. This is not altering a state variable, which is view function. It only reads and does not alter this state variable. This variable that I've created does not alter it. It only reads the information there. So going for that, because I've been able to loop through, I have to get the employee information. So what I have to use is, because I've assigned it, of course, and assigned it guy employee. Remember, this is a temporary data. That's why I'm giving a memory. Then empdms, what I've already given it here. Let's see, please. This is what I'm supposed to do. Please, sorry. And when you are naming your variables, the starting should be small, then the other consecutive sentences should be capital letter, the first letter. So employee emp dms should be equals to should be equals to this array, dynamic array, emps of I. I'm creating an instance again of the employee empdms should be equals to this dynamic array at I, means should be equals to emps at the employee structure information I'm putting at 1. That's what I'm simply saying. This one, save it in this empdms at 1. Any information that will be in ID of 1, save it in this empdms. But when you're saving this empdms, it's also an instance of that employee structure. So definitely this empdms is also employee structure. Then in that, I have to look for a matching value. Or records rather. Now if I'm looking for the matching records, so I have to compare the ID the user will be putting in to the ID that has already been put in by the function of add new records. So because I have to use the conditional statement. If. So I'll say if emp dms dot emp id is equals to. Now remember what I said. I said I have to now look for matching records. I have to use that condition so that the input that the user is entering compared to the input that has already been in place. So I'm saying from this emp dms, the information which is emp dms comes from the variable of add employee emp dms dot employee id is this integer employee id, that's the structure of the employee, is equals to the new employee ID that the user is requesting for. So this emp ID is coming from an user input from the get employee. This is where it's coming from here. Now because I'm doing this, so I have to now return if it is, of course, if it is correct, if the ID I'm putting here is also the ID I'm putting here, it should return the name. It should also return department, and at the same time it should also return emp designation. Please just be careful when you are giving your variables so that you don't mix up the names. I'm using emp dms, so employee data management system. So what I'm definitely saying is that when the input of the user of the ID is corresponding to the structure of the employee ID, then you should return the name, return the department, also return the designation. Then of course if this is not correct, then what should you do? Now if that is not correct, if ID is not present, you can return not found, or you compose a message for that. So let's see. So now if that ID is not correct, return. Remember when I'm putting my return statement is after this condition of the follow, so you should return that employee details not found. Now why am I putting this code? I'm putting this code because from the function get to employee, I said it should return 3 strings. So which is why I'm also using it here. Return employee details not found. This is the first string, this is the second string, this is the third string. It's not so necessary for some information to be there, but let's just put some information so that you see the output. Not found. Now if you don't input this complete, it's going to generate an error. Now if you read through the error, it says type error, different number of arguments in return statement than in returns declaration. Now different number of arguments in return statement is this return statement exactly. Then comparing it to the returns declaration, which I've declared, I say it should return 3 string. So if I'm inputting 2 string, of course there will be an error. So that's why I have to input that 2 string. It might be empty, separate with comma, and let's just put it also. It's not necessary for your information to be there. So this is what exactly we are done with the smart contract. So let's deploy it and see what it will be doing, or what amendments we need to do. So Ctrl S, remember to deploy, then go to your deploy tab. Now this is the address that's calling the smart contract. Let's save it somewhere. This is the address that's calling the smart contract. So let's deploy. Now when I'm deploying, now in here, this place here, I said okay, the address should be public. I'm making so that you will see the owner. I'm not supposed to make it public but just for learning purposes, I'm making so that you can see that okay, this is the owner of the contract. So when I call this owner, it's going to show me the owner or the person that has called this smart contract. So definitely the person calling smart contract is the owner of the smart contract, because I use this constructor keyword there. It shows that owner, which is this owner, which is the address, should be the one. It should be the one calling the smart contract. Otherwise, it should give me that error that I'm not the owner of the smart contract. So I think that even if I should change it and observe it has changed that smart contract as OXABC, then I also click on owner, it's still going to retain that first person that called that smart contract. So definitely the initial address is the owner of that contract. Anyone else calling this smart contract or calling the functions won't work. So let's now implement our functions. So ID, let's say 11, then string, that guy, then department, let's say software, then designation, so this is developer. So then I call on transact. So automatically, looking at my terminal, it shows that it has gone through, giving it a check mark. So let's add a new one, 102. Sorry, no, 102. This is employee ID, name, TAN, then the department, let's say finance, then the designation, which is, let's say manager, then add the employee. Then it shows that it has gone through. So I can just click on that, this information here to just check. Then go to your decoded input. It shows that okay, this is the information you have inputted here. Then let's see, 103 Lex. Then the department, let's see, I can create sports, designation, coach. Oh, of course, sorry, we are dealing with employee, so let's see Lex. Then the department, I can just input department of account, then auditor. The designation should be auditor. So successfully I've added about 3 employees. So let's try and get the employee details. I remember because I've used array here in my function. If you check it, I used emp.push. You should push that information that I've input as the ID, as the name, as the department, input it into this array of instances of the struct, of the structure, or of the struct employee. So let's try and get that information. If I'm getting the information, it will be based on the employee ID I'm inputting, which is int emp ID. So 101, then I click on. Now looking at this, I'm inputting a particular ID, so it with that ID will return that tech guy, return software, return of course then Solidity developer. These are the information of the particular ID of 101. Now if let's say I have not 104, remember I've not created an ID of 104, and then I click on get employee, it's going to show that employee not found, then add second string not found. So because these are the information I'm inserting here, you can put anyone, so that is that information is returning, because that the condition that I put here, that emp dms, which is the instance that I created of an employee in the add function, dot employee ID dot the structure ID that is already created is equals to the new ID I'm requesting for, that the user input. So if that condition is met, Of course, it will return the details that has been added already. Now, if that condition is not met, it's going to show employee details not found, and it shows another string, then shows another string. So this is a simple tutorial of employee details management system on how to add employee and also get employee. I was able to use a for loop, then use the dynamic array to also save our information. Now, going back to this constructor and modifier, I will change my address to another person's address. So if someone else comes and he inputs his address, and of course the company does not know him, and he wants to call this function, please let me say get employee. Okay. Now in my add employee, I didn't put the inheritance of no. You should use the features of this constructor, of actually of the modifier in my add employee. So, but in my get employee, I input that you should use the features of the only owner of the modifier. So let's call the get employee. Now, calling the get employee, if you look at your terminal, it shows that it's revert, so that the transaction has been reverted to the initial state. Reason provided that the person calling this contract is not the owner of this contract. So that is why I'm using that modifier. I have to ascertain that, are you the owner of this contract? Okay, fine, you can call it. If you are not the owner, then it's going to give me this error information that I'm not the owner of the contract. So thank you all for listening. And remember to go through the student marks management system so you can have an understanding of ways that I've been able to, of course, ask students and also get student information. I'm that tech guy, and follow me, like and subscribe. I need the support so that we can get more views. Thank you for learning. I'm that tech guy once again.